It's October 13th, 1872. The steamer Lac La Belle drives eastward through the cold, howling wind on Lake Michigan, her wooden hull shuddering with every impact of the relentless waves. The wind has been rising since dusk, and now in the dark of night, a hard October gale sweeps down the length of the lake from the north, flattening the tops of the waves into white foam. The vessel's steam engine chugs along to a steady rhythm below, in a battle of wills against the forceful storm. She is bound for Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Grand Haven, Michigan, but the lake has other intentions. The 1872 wreck of Lac La Belle, today on Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs. Hello and welcome to Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs, tales of mishaps, misfortune, and misadventure. This bonus episode is about the 19th century steamship Lac La Belle. At the time of this recording, its discovery had just been announced, after being lost for 150 years. There will be more about that discovery at the tail end of the episode. In the mid-19th century, steamships were well on their way to replacing sailing ships for both commercial shipping and passenger travel. The waterways of the Great Lakes were crucial for the bulk transportation of iron ore, limestone, sand, grain, and many other materials that the Midwest region and the entire country relied on. Trade in and around the Great Lakes had been taking place for many centuries prior to European settlement in the region. The indigenous peoples of the area historically used the lakes and its many tributaries to trade items such as pottery, tools, furs, fish, and game. The fur trade with the French settlers in the 17th century started a flourishing industry that would endure into the 19th century. With the Industrial Revolution and the rise of steam power, the demand for iron ore and coal was supported by major Great Lakes ports such as Duluth, Minnesota, Superior, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, and Toledo and Cleveland, Ohio. Passenger travel via the Great Lakes was also significant, especially before the prominence of railroads. By the mid-19th century, the Erie Canal, Lachine Canal, Welland Canal, and the Soo Locks made the Great Lakes accessible from the Atlantic. While ocean-going vessels wouldn't be able to reach the Great Lakes until the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway in 1959, the Great Lakes provided a convenient and relatively easy method of both commercial shipping and passenger travel. The wooden-hulled passenger steamer Lac La Belle was built in 1864 by Ira Lafreniere of Cleveland, Ohio, and owned by Robert Hanna & Company, also of Cleveland. Classed as a packet freighter, she was 216 feet long, 37 feet wide, and could carry both passengers and general cargo. Her screw propeller was powered by a twin-cylinder high-pressure steam engine, one of the first vessels on the lakes to have twin stacks. The Lac La Belle was placed into service carrying passengers between Cleveland and ports in Lake Superior, and was considered one of the most luxurious and comfortable steamers of her time. Her route offered a relaxing and scenic journey along the beautiful waterways, and she quickly became a favorite of travelers. Not long after being placed into service in 1864, she ran aground at Eagle River, Michigan, and then again in Lake Superior, causing $5,000 in damage. In September of 1866, she lost a propeller on Lake Michigan. Despite her popularity, she was having some unfortunate luck, which would only get worse. On November 23, 1866, while en route to Cleveland, the Lac La Belle was steaming down the St. Clair River. This waterway links Lake Huron to the north and Lake St. Clair to the south. The river as a whole is narrow, and some portions are very narrow, with limited space for ships to maneuver. The sidewheel steamer Milwaukee was upbound in the river, fighting against the current on the Canadian side. With the current on her side, Lac La Belle spotted Milwaukee's running lights and sounded its whistle one time, signaling to the Milwaukee to keep toward the Canadian shore. Shortly after navigating around a bend in the river, the Milwaukee collided with Lac La Belle, striking her port side and plunging deep into her hull. Water poured through the gaping hole, drowning Chief Engineer James Evans in the engine room. With the ship sinking, Steward Henry Rudd attempted to jump to Milwaukee's deck, but fell in between the vessels and was crushed to death. Lac La Belle sank in 25 feet of water in just 5 minutes. It was believed that pilots on both vessels were unfamiliar with the St. Clair River. In 1871, 5 years later, a judge determined both vessels to be at fault, with errors made in the judgment of each vessel's speed and intentions. Lac La Belle's owners claimed damages of $80,000, and the Milwaukee was seized by U.S. Marshals pending its bond. Lac La Belle remained underwater in the St. Clair River for nearly 3 years. In July of 1869, she was raised by Coast Wrecking Company of New York City and delivered to Detroit, Michigan. She received a massive overhaul and reconditioning after spending 3 years in the water, to the tune of $14,000. After repairs, she was sold to Nathan Engelman of Milwaukee for $23,600, equal to almost $500,000 today. Engelman changed Lac La Belle's registry to Milwaukee and put her into service with his company, Engelman Transportation Company of Milwaukee. Her service route took passengers between the home port and Grand Haven, Michigan, in conjunction with the Detroit, Grand Haven, and Milwaukee Railway. Its new owner, indeed, did not change her fortunes. Just 2 months later, she had another stroke of misfortune when she was grounded again, this time at Grand Traverse Bay. On July 4, 1870, Lac La Belle missed the harbor entrance at Grand Haven and ran aground, causing her to be stuck for 6 hours. On October 13, 1872, the troubled Lac La Belle would make her final voyage. At approximately 9:00 p.m., she departed Milwaukee for Grand Haven under the command of Captain W.H. Thompson, carrying 25 passengers and 28 crew, along with a cargo of 19,000 bushels of barley, 1,200 barrels of flour, 50 barrels of pork, and 25 barrels of whiskey. Around midnight, the ship began leaking badly, but the source of the leak could not be found. Just as Captain Thompson turned the ship about to return to Milwaukee, the weather turned worse. A strong gale erupted out of the north, producing extremely rough conditions, including pounding waves. As the waves crashed over the ship, even more water poured into the lower decks, extinguishing the ship's boilers. Sinking and powerless, the gale-force winds pushed the vessel south for many hours, as the crew battled to save her. Cargo was thrown overboard to lighten the vessel, but nothing could stop her from sinking. Finally, at 5:00 a.m., Captain Thompson gave the order to abandon ship. Passengers and crew were evacuated into 5 lifeboats, and they set off for shore. As the lifeboats departed, the ship's second engineer observed a group of people still on the deck of Lac La Belle. In the October 16, 1872 edition of the New York Times, it reported that these folks remained on the ship because they didn't trust the small lifeboats. Lac La Belle sank stern first, shortly after 5 a.m., about 20 miles off the coast of Racine, Wisconsin. 2 of the 5 lifeboats landed safely at Racine, one at Kenosha, one at Calumet, Illinois, and another was picked up by the schooner Floretta near Waukegan. 8 people perished in the sinking, most likely those that the second engineer observed to be still on the deck as the lifeboats departed. Several sources about the loss of the Lac La Belle indicate a 6th lifeboat, or possibly life raft, was launched and subsequently capsized. It is certainly possible a life raft was launched by these folks at the last minute as the ship went down. An agent for Engelman Transportation Company, Mr. J.E. Dow, ripped pages out of the ship's manifest with the names of all on board before abandoning ship. He was on board the lifeboat picked up by the Floretta, and the manifest was crucial in identifying the names of survivors and of those who perished. Lost were H. Freeman, N. W. Gilbert, S. Winan, R. H. Lippincott, W. Smith Dunning, Henry Sparks, and Henry Adams, the ship's cook, plus one unidentified man. On October 18th, steamboat inspectors William Fitzgerald and Thomas Humus released the following statement. The heavy sea in which she labored on the night of her loss caused her to spring a leak that no human foresight could have previously determined or obviated, and she succumbed to a similar influence that has caused other staunch vessels to founder under similar circumstances. Coincidentally, Lac La Belle's almost identical sister ship, Ironsides, sank 9 months later in similar circumstances and along the same route. The exact location of the Lac La Belle was unknown for almost 150 years, and became one of the most sought-after shipwrecks of the Great Lakes. On February 13, 2026, Paul Ehorn of Illinois announced that he and his team had found the Lac La Belle back in October of 2022. The announcement was delayed for years as the team gathered video of the wreck and tended to other commitments. The discovery came as a result of a clue given to him by author Ross Richardson. The information came from a commercial fisherman regarding an item snagged from the bottom that would have only come from a 19th century steamship. This allowed Ehorn to zero in on the specific location, and he found the wreck within 2 hours using side-scan sonar. According to Ehorn, the ship lies upright, her hull is intact, and in remarkably good condition. Due to the highly competitive nature of shipwreck hunting, Ehorn has not released the exact location of the wreck and didn't provide any further details. At 80 years old, the discovery caps a lifetime of shipwreck hunting for Paul Ehorn, who said, "It's kind of a game, like solve the puzzle. Sometimes you don't have many pieces to put the puzzle together, but this one worked out and we found it right away. It was a moment of real jubilation. We knew we had done it." There are an estimated 6,000 shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, but only a very small percentage have been discovered. Like so many others, the Lac La Belle fell victim to the unpredictable, sudden storms that are so characteristic of the Great Lakes. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for the 1872 wreck of the Lac La Belle. Thank you so much for listening. Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs is written, edited, and produced by me, Rich Napolitano. Original theme music is by Sean Siegfried. For ad-free listening, please subscribe at patreon.com/shipwreckspod, now with 3 tiers to choose from, starting at just $5 a month. All tiers get ad-free episodes and bonus episodes with different perks for joining. Go to patreon.com/shipwreckspod to subscribe. You can also join the Officers Club now directly through Apple Podcasts for just $4.99 a month. Simply find Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs on Apple Podcasts and click the banner to subscribe. Last but not least, please be sure to rate and review Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please join me again next time. And as always, don't forget to wear your life jackets.